Welcome to another episode of
Welcome.
Tzuzamen. Hi, Tzip.
Hi, Tzili.
Hi, Beverly.
Tzuzamen together every week, and today
Now
we
you
are
sound
with
like Yankele.
Yankele is my husband.
Yankele
She
is my
thinks now
husband.
that, oh my God. And today we are
Beverly, Dr. Beverly Goodman-Tchernov.
Goodman-Tchernov?
Goodman-Tchernov.
Wow.
From the Leon Charney, I wanted to say Resolution Center, from the Leon Charney Marine Science in the University of Haifa.
Wow.
Hey, Beverly.
Hey,
How you doing?
Hey.
And I'll leave to you to say all the academic titles and everything, because I never know.
And what you do?
And from my point of view, you're the tsunami lady. So you can tell us about that. But we're going to talk today about fish poop.
I'm going to talk about fecal pellets, just to be scientific about our fish poop.
All right.
Okay.
I'm not scientific, and I'm not.
So
you have to fill us.
Do you want me to introduce myself?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I am the head of the Department for Marine Geosciences at the University of Haifa, which is in the school, Leon Charney School of Marine Sciences. So that is, and what I do is I'm a marine geologist, and I do a lot of different environmental reconstruction and looking at what happened in the past as a way to try to figure out what's going to happen in the future, as well as what's happening right now. So this could be things like, I don't know, coastal change, sea level rise, issues that we see anywhere where we have a coastline. So that's going to
bother everybody today.
The general is Beverly Tsunami.
That's right. So how did we get to fish poop?
Oh, isn't it obvious? No, just kidding. So fish poop. Why are we looking at fish poop? Well, we have this interesting mystery that we're dealing with, because I work with organisms sometimes that are called Foraminifera. And Foraminifera, which is a big word, so we'll just call them forams, or sometimes we call them bugs. They live everywhere. Everywhere where there's an ocean, you can find these tiny little things. They're as big as, say, a quarter, and as small as completely microscopic. And they live in every ocean, and we use them for all kinds of things to try to understand, the changes in the temperature of the sea. They've been around for 500 million years. And they're quite they're powerful little bugs. Okay, they're very powerful because they can tell us a lot of information about what's happening in the environment. So, for example, if you have somewhere where there's lots of pollution, you'll actually see changes in which species live there. It actually affects the communities of these little critters. So why are we talking about fish poop? So the reason we're talking about fish poop is because on a recent expedition to the Dead Sea, I hope everyone's heard of the Dead Sea, but the Dead Sea is at the lowest point on Earth. It's it's the saltiest water body, I believe, on Earth. And nothing really lives in it. There's some microbes that have been identified, but in the water itself, there's very little life, if basically only on a sort of microbe level. And we decided to check these pools that are right next to the Dead Sea. They're right on the coastline, and they're little pools that are created by the springs that feed the Dead Sea. And so we collected some muds from there and checked them out, and it turned out there were foraminifera, which is kind of crazy because it's very far away from any sea. So we started to think about, like, okay, how in the world did these bugs, how did these, little animals make it all the way from a sea, which could be the Red Sea, it could be the Mediterranean, but how in the world did they get there? So another researcher was doing some work in the Mediterranean and discovered that there were, she actually collected fish that eat algae, which is where a lot of the foraminifera live, and then she captured them and let them poop and then checked their poop to see what was in it. And the idea was, okay, foraminifera are so tiny, like, how do they invade new places? Like, how are they going to get there? It makes sense when you think about an animal like humans, where we can take our diseases everywhere, right? Corona really taught us that. No problem bringing a virus from China to Seattle, right? But for a little tiny microscopic animal, we don't fully understand like how one goes through the Suez Canal and makes it to Italy. Why do we have the same ones, so far away? And so she discovered, my buddy Tamar, that she could actually collect the fish poop of these fish in the Mediterranean, and then she'd let them collect the fish, hold on to them, as she describes it, like an alien abduction, kidnap the fish, put them on the boat for a couple hours, in a container, put them back in the sea, like, thank you for your poop, now you can go away. And then in the poop, check whether or not there's any living animals, okay? And some of those, and what she found is, sure enough, there were living foraminifera. And the reason this is super cool is because, of course, the fish can swim, they can move. So it explained like one of the ways that things move around, how you can probably think of it like if you're going on a hike in the woods and your dog or your pants get covered in burrs, the reason for that is because you want to spread the seeds. This is something an adaptation that helps. Or if you live somewhere with bats and you get the nasty you get the spray of the bat guano, but there's also a lot of seeds in that, so it's a way that you can get seeds all over the place. So it turns out that fish pooping is one way that these little microscopic animals, but it also means that they're surviving all the way through their digestive tract, which is kind of wild, so they're actually making it through the digestion. Okay, so that's where we started with thinking about it. But in the Dead Sea, we're going, what in the world? There's no connection. So how? There's springs, but these aren't animals that live in fresh water. They can only be in, salty to very salty. So we're trying to think about it as we went down there, and we managed to catch, now follow me here, there are fish in these pools.
Wow.
Next to the Dead Sea. And when I say next to, I don't mean like the next town over. I mean like
right there,
3 feet, like mamash, like right on the coastline of the Dead Sea. The first time I saw it, I was like, are those fish? am I seeing what I think what I'm seeing? And sure enough, these really like rapidly changing pools, they change all the time, they get eroded, there's rains and they get bigger and they get smaller, and they're really they're quite temporary. I mean, they're just changing all the time. And these fish manage to live there. So on our last expedition, we did the alien trick. We kidnapped a bunch of these little Dead Sea fish. We kept them in a bottle, and sure enough, they had to do their business. So we were able to collect their fecal pellets, and we were able to stain them to see whether or not there were any living forams in them. Okay, but if you're thinking right now, you just said it's not connected to anywhere else. So, okay, there's these little animals in their stomachs swim to the Mediterranean, right? They can't hop, they can't, I think I just gave a big clue there, but they can't make it from the Dead Sea, because if we're thinking, okay, if we have some of these animals, these microscopic animals in the Red Sea, how do they get from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea, or the Mediterranean to the Dead Sea, or the Black Sea to the Dead Sea? So what we also saw when we were down there are birds.
Big birds.
This is more or less like there's the story of the old lady or the woman who ate a fly in order to solve eating the fly.
But the birds don't eat them? They don't carry
them. So the birds, two things. One, it may explain how these foraminifera got there to begin with, because the birds are
passing them,
eating things and what have you on the coasts of the Red Sea and the Mediterranean and in the shallow water. So they will be flying north or flying south. And as we were standing there discussing and thinking about it,
they poop,
swoops in a crane and eats one of the fish. So a couple of things could be going on. It could be the birds are actually bringing foraminifera to the pools, and also the fish that the birds are eating wherever have in their stomachs the foraminifera. So what is the Thanksgiving, the turduncan? You know, this is sort of, you know, the fish that's stuffed with the foram and the fish that's then stuffed into the bird. So we're kind of looking at everyone's poop now and trying to follow this story. I mean, poop is a really important thing in science, and the same, we can get so much information out of poop. So this is
what the use of the poop?
So the use of the poop is that then we can start to understand how biological communities spread, and this is very important for understanding environmental issues. Like, you know, if we're looking at if we were to, like, for example, they want to, believe it or not, they want to do a canal and connect between the Mediterranean, the Dead Sea, and the Red Sea, in order to bring the Dead Sea back, because it's going down every year, it's shrinking. So one of the reasons that we think it's important is because we want to understand what is the job of the Dead Sea, right? We don't think of it in terms of the biological things, but if it's a stopping point that keeps these communities healthy, you know, by bringing, because you need diversity, you need to have lots of different genetic material, and if everything lives in the same place all the time and reproduces with itself, you don't get that diversity. So anytime you can move, you know, whenever you get new hotties, you want to get new hotties in the neighborhood, right? So that's what these birds are doing. You know, they're bringing them down from the north, they're bringing them up from the south, and they're contributing to the health of the system because of this diversity that's created.
That's how the Jews got taller.
There is flowers.
Not my grandmother.
It's amazing, all this movement that it's outside ourselves.
Yeah,
unbelievable, and it's tinier than, you know.
I've seen these fish. They're really, you cannot. If Beverly wouldn't point them, I wouldn't make it even pay attention.
Yeah, when you first see it, I even thought, oh, are those like bugs that are, you know, kind of landing and running around on top of the water? And then I realized, no, those are fish coming up for the bugs. they're
Do you think fish talk to each other?
I'm sure they do.
But there are no.
I think they even try to talk to us sometimes, but we don't really we don't understand them yet.
There is any proof, scientific proof?
There have been a lot of observation. I mean, the fish, I mean, they certainly learn, you know, and they certainly have a range of, you know, anyone who's had an aquarium long enough, you know, it's kind of funny at home. I've noticed that when I approach the aquarium, the fish will kind of come over to me, but they're not that interested. But if my son comes, who's the one who feeds them every day,
right?
They completely, you know, they swarm him, you know, like they're like, oh, here it comes. They've already figured out that, you know, I'm nice, but I don't, you know,
they don't come to you. But
right,
you know, it's very much about animals. They come to the one who feeds them because they're dependent on this person. So they all come for that.
So you don't deal with the vegetarian
plants,
the plants in the water?
Not generally. I look a little, but actually Donnie, my husband, is the expert on marine photosynthesis and plants, water plants. But we look at it when we're trying to understand sea level change. We do look at the plants, because just like a forest has, you know, different types of forests, and you have forests that are common, say mangroves, you know, which are on a coastline, and then you have, you know, pine forests as you go further up. It's very similar in the sea, where plants have their environmental zone. So when you think about changing, when the sea changes, you know, for whatever reason, if it's warming up, if it's sea level is rising, it also shifts where those areas are. So we can get information from all these different things in the natural world.
Beverly, how do you define when tsunami can occur?
So okay, so when I'm not playing with poop, I'm looking at the history and evidence for tsunamis in the past as a means to try to be prepared for possible future tsunamis. So in the Mediterranean, so in general, when there is a tsunami, there sometimes are signs that you can see on the landscape that will let you know that an event is about to happen. Many people think that tsunamis are always earthquake related, but they're not necessarily. There's other causes. It could be, you can have it from what's an underwater landslide. So very similar to on land, but offshore. The bottom of the ocean is very complicated. It has mountain ranges and canyons and cliffs and, all, I mean, they have mountains bigger than the mountains that are on the continent. So you can get landslides that occur underwater, and that will push the water, and then that push of the water can cause a tsunami, and of course earthquakes can cause tsunamis. And then you can also have things like volcanic eruptions, meteorite falls, but many of them, it's the case where the water, if you were sitting on the beach and one of these events happened, deep in the ocean, the water might pull back. It's kind of like suddenly you'd have this amazing low tide. And that's this massive water that's going up out further in the ocean. It's going up, so that water has to go somewhere. So it's actually kind of like pulling the curtain from the beach. And then that's one sign. Of course, if you know that there's an earthquake, we have warning systems where if there is an earthquake, then everyone gets informed in the different countries that might be affected, and then it's reviewed and modeled and analyzed to determine whether or not an announcement has to be made. Israel, for example, in 2012, put together a committee to try to figure out, does Israel need to be concerned about tsunamis? And they looked at the research that had been done and the historical records of tsunamis, and decided that yes, we need to look into this further, and we need to decide if it's part of the national emergency response plan. So what's amazing is in only 9 years, Israel has I like to say Israel never does anything this much, it's always let's go to the end, ad sof, So Israel actually, not only did they decide, the government decided that it would be part of the plan, they immediately put into motion drills, and on the beaches having warning signs and creating. Really? You need to go to the beach more.
We're going every day almost.
What's your favorite beach? What beach are you at?
No, but you have to go on the beach.
Banana Beach.
Not by the Tayelet.
Banana Beach in Banana Beach in Olga?
No.
In
Tel Aviv.
There are signs everywhere.
Yeah.
There are signs, but so what? You have signs, and then
but people don't know what to do. I mean, what they're going to? Everybody going to rush to the Jerusalem mountains? What?
That's an option. If you got a helicopter, hop on it.
Helicopter, what are the options?
Yeah. Well, the idea behind the signs is that it does a couple of things. One, it's a static reminder, or in, I guess not a reminder, but it's a static awareness thing. So let's say, and people are down at the beach.
Consideration.
What's that?
To take in consideration while you're playing on the beach, you might get hit by a tsunami.
Well, the idea is not to scare people from, having a nice picnic, but the idea is that because the signs are there all the time, even if people look at it and go, oh, please give me a break, which a lot of people do. But the idea is that these signs it makes it a reality. So even if people go, oh, that's absurd, that's ridiculous. If a helicopter arrives, or if the speakers start announcing tsunami warning, it's not the first time they've ever heard it. It's not the first time that they know it's about.
Yeah, but then what they do?
And then, okay, and then now once you notice the signs, I promise you, you'll never be able to not see them. Once you notice it, you're going to see them everywhere. But basically, if you see it, one of the signs, you should, if you just turn around and do a 360, I guarantee you're going to see another sign. And the other sign will have an arrow. And the arrows are giving you the path to milut, evacuation route. Okay, so it's going to give you the best path for getting out. Now you might be thinking, well, that's silly. I mean, if there's a tsunami, just run away from the beach.
This
right?
is like a big escape room. Just it's a big escape room outdoors.
Yeah, escape where? It's all flat.
So here's the idea: is that
Mugachov has a little bit. A little bit.
Well,
you have
By Hilton,
Hilton.
no, but Hilton,
Yeah.
they're coming from the other side.
so you'll be happy to know that one of the assembly points in Tel Aviv is actually the grassy area outside the Hilton.
Yeah, I know.
That's one of the main assemblies. Yeah. So, but basically those signs, they direct you to the closest safe place, because if you don't follow the signs, you might be okay, but you also might end up in a trap. You know, either let's say a set of buildings where they've done the modeling and they know that it'll be, you know, you'll have trouble getting out of there, or for example, if you accidentally are running away from the beach, but you run towards the river, that's not good either. Okay, rivers during tsunamis can be even more dangerous because all of that water and all of that energy will go down the river, and you can get even bigger waves on the sides of the river because it's all concentrated and focused. So the idea behind the signs is that it directs you in the safest path out, and it will take you, you know, also to one of these assembly points. And, you know, God forbid we have a real event. Hopefully, I always joke that I'm one of the few scientists that's like, I hope I'm never proved right. I'm happy to be wrong.
I had a personal connection because when I made a film, Tel Aviv, Berlin, and the girl was 5 or 6 years old. And then I don't know, 19 years later or whatever, she first time she came to Thailand, right?
Yeah.
With her boyfriend, they went to the hotel. Outside the hotel, there was a tsunami, the big one, and she was never found. Her boyfriend was saved, but she was. So you know.
Well, this is exactly why we do the work, because in 2004, you know, nearly 250,000 people died. 250,000 people died. There's still 20,000.
I think it was
20,000. Yeah, and there's still there's still 20,000
talking about.
Yes, yes, in Thailand. Does it?
And there's still 20,000 people unaccounted for.
Beverly, I was in Florida when the tsunami in Thailand occurred. Does it make sense? Because I had a feeling that the whole sea shook up all the way. You know, it's like a big bath. And it felt, and you know, I can imagine, but it was a big, the whole thing shook up, but it was exactly at the same time of the tsunami.
Wow. Wow. Well, there is evidence that the earthquakes, I mean, obviously the earthquake is happening in the earth, and it even will momentarily, believe it or not, affect the orbit of the planet. so yes, I mean, there is, I would not be surprised. I mean, if you were somewhere where the water was super shallow or like some kind of lagoon or something, it's possible that it was such a large earthquake. It'd be interesting. You can check it pretty easily by looking in the USGS you know, earthquake records, because they will show you maps of it might have been the tiniest little tremor, you know, really tiny, but it's possible that it could have been felt there, and for whatever reason you might just be super sensitive. You could be super sensitive.
They're super sensitive, but yeah, for people, for the planet, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I for example, I actually experienced 2 earthquakes, one in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the other in Michigan.
Where Michigan? In Arbor?
In outside Detroit.
Oh, it's Ann Arbor. No, I was in Ann Arbor.
Yeah,
Oh,
not far from Ann Arbor. And, you know, and these were both earthquakes that almost nobody else felt, and I felt them. So, you know, everyone, your sensitivity can be different.
But tell me something. So we can somehow protect ourselves from earthquakes by building buildings, you know, that can sustain it.
Yeah.
What can we do about tsunami?
Well, I think probably one of the best things to avoid when you're on a coastline, I mean, for many reasons, but also when you know that there's tsunami risk. And we know, for example, the Eastern Mediterranean has tsunami risk. And that's do your best not to put sensitive infrastructure on the coastline. It's good policy anyway, for many reasons. If sea level rises, we're getting our drinking water from the sea. You know, we don't want to have potential for pollution, you know, greater pollution and all of those things. So that's one thing. Like Israel's, you know, it's pretty scary. Like I visited my kids' new school this week, and you know, I'm literally I'm looking at the tsunami sign that is, I think, 10 meters from the doorway of my son's classroom. I don't like that idea. You know, I don't like the idea that I have, you know, 10 years to go where I know that he is in one of the most high risk areas in the country. It really is hard for me. I actually told
everything flipped, because the best places would be you know, by the sea, and all of a sudden it's the worst places to be.
Yeah, it's just we live too long. You know, part of it is that we live too long. You know, I think
that's great. I just want to live as long, you know, never ending.
But
yeah, I mean, but it's funny because a lot of it really is, you know, I think that in previous generations, and I'm talking, you know, on a scale of thousands of years, you know, our things that don't happen every generation can sometimes be quickly forgotten, you know, and so, you know, we become very, you know, there can be a big storm that destroys a whole area.
But we cannot live thinking about all this.
This is a natural protective system that humanity is having, and it's good this way. Nobody really learns about, you know, from anything, because it's scary. So you just avoid it.
We know people. We have a friend, Yar Garbus, used to say that his parents, the way they educated, that everything on this earth is to kill you. Everything. The iron to burn you, the gas to explode, the car to, you know, to kill you.
Yeah, we live with risk always.
Everything that he grew up, you know.
You know,
it's true.
Some people ignore everything. Some people are afraid of everything, and I don't know that it's really by choice. I think it's character, and it's just built in, and you just have to deal with this. But some things do happen, and some places, and you just need to be lucky. Do you think Caesarea is covered with water due to tsunami? The old
the harbor. Harbor. Yes, I mean, I think that the tsunamis that hit Caesarea definitely contributed to the damage of the harbor. You know, of course, over time, the harbor is 2,000 years old, so you'd never expect it to be in perfect condition anyway. But each of these, it was hit by tsunamis at least 3 times after it was built. So probably each of these events caused it, you know, to deteriorate quickly, you know, in a short period of time. And then, you know, over time.
People don't want to think about it, but look what's happening around us now. There are people who think that the corona is a flu. It's nothing. They don't even bother, right? So it's really, you're right. It's different degrees.
Yeah. But, you know, all we can do, I mean, the way that I look at it, and this is where the signs come in, and you mentioned 2004, you know, 250,000 people died in 2004. And the reason that I feel very passionate about, you know, this work is because 250,000 people didn't have to die. You know, you can look at the horrifying photographs. To me, the most horrifying photographs is not the wave. It's not, I hate to say this, it's not the you know, it's not corpses. It's actually the people walking on the beach, clueless.
Yes, like me.
You know, and it's so unfortunate because there were hours of opportunity, but there was no system in place. I actually know some of the geologists that were in Hawaii with the Geological Survey who knew this was going to happen and did everything in their power to get the message out, but there simply wasn't a good enough system to save people. And so, you know, today, those same places, they're doing drills, they've got their signage programs, they have all kinds of, you know, so the beauty of it is, okay, we can be scared of things, but the beauty of this is that I feel good that we have a plan.
Why don't you put your kid in a school in the Carmel Mountains?
Well, they both were. That's exactly where they were. One was in Zichron, and the other one was in Keren Maharal. It was good for a few years, but what can you do? The education is best, and we all have to take our risks. We all have to look at our statistical,
okay.
You know.
You take the risk, you know.
Yeah. But I know my kids, that if the warning happens, they know what to do. You know, I know that they will not be hesitating. Sorry?
You're going to show them specifically from
I am.
Where to run away?
That school does do drills, because the schools that are along the coastline get a special visit from
Magan Michael? What is it? It's in Magan Michael?
Rachel, Reshut Chirum Leumi.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Why do you scare me? That's
Yes,
it.
Michalushas.
You
It's
scared
better
me.
to talk about poop.
Yeah, it's better to talk about poop, fish poop.
Yeah. Well, we also have some ancient poop in Caesarea. We can talk about that.
What does it tell you? What does it tell you about
the Caesarea poop?
Yeah.
It tells us that it was a really big population. There is a big field of sewage offshore of Caesarea that is from 1500 years ago, that is still preserved there because there's so much. So it can actually tell us about the size of the population. We have a project that we've been talking about even before Corona, though now it of course is even more relevant, because viruses can be, the genetics of the virus can be identified in sewage. So one of the things that they've been doing in Israel and also in the US is rather than testing the people, especially in the early parts of the virus where it wasn't everywhere, they would literally go and just test the municipal sewage.
Yes.
And you could tell, because if people are sick, if the virus is going to get into the sewage, and you can just test the sewage. You don't know who has it, but you know that people living within the discharge for that sewage area have it. So
want to swim? No, that's what I want to know, because that's what I'm asking. No, is your smile. You keep smiling and you're full with life. What you're doing under the water? Why did you go the first place to study marine science?
Because that's the only time I stopped talking. I was kidding.
Great.
Right,
Stop thinking.
I think she's more underwater than above water.
Wow.
Yeah, no, I really like it. I mean, it's just an amazing, you know, our planet is mostly water. And, you know, we always think about the ocean like it's, you know, it's this alien thing, but the reality is we're the aliens. We're the ones who are living on the 30% of the planet. You know, we're the ones who are living in the minority in terms of the geography of the planet. You know, most of our planet is ocean. Right. So for me, going underwater, it really allows me to, in a way, you know, the sensory aspect, you know, really help. I really can think clearly. You know, I'm just observing things, and I feel like I'm part of the planet finally.
No noise, it's quiet. No, I mean, there's noise, but not like...
There is noise, but yeah, everything is sort of,
noise.
you know, everything changes. Everything, your senses are different. Your body in some ways becomes sort of less of a burden. You know, you have the gravity change.
You have a soul of a nympha? You know what I'm talking about?
I have a soul of a nympha. I did not see it. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Listen,
tell me,
I'm jealous.
Really, what's the next breaking thing? You know, breaking big thing.
Look at us. Look at the way she looks at you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna make a deal with you, Tzili. If I'm gonna tell you the biggest thing, but you have to promise me this doesn't go out until I okay it.
Okay.
okay with that?
Can we talk here? Yes.
Or you can cut this part off if it never
No.
happens.
No.
Okay. So the biggest thing that I have coming up in terms of discoveries, which to me really truly is, I think, one of the most amazing things I've ever found, or been a part of finding, I should say. It's quite a team. 3,500 years ago, there was a major eruption on the island of Santorini, and the Thera Eruption. And the Thera Eruption is considered like the biggest natural disaster in the time of written human history. And this eruption was ginormous, as the kids say, and it caused tsunamis, and there was ash. If you ever go to Santorini today, you can go and see the layers, just 60 meters thick of volcanic ash. Well, the weirdest thing about this whole story is, even though it changed the Mediterranean, it changed the cultures, all kinds of things have been attached to it. They even think that maybe the crossing of the Red Sea is a story that came out of this. Also, the story of Atlantis might be linked to this event. But the wildest thing is that, do you know how many victims were found from this event?
No.
0.
Wow.
None.
Zero.
What does it mean?
None. No one has been able to figure it out. It was theorized that the eruption, that people, it's probably true that there were warnings, the volcano was going and things were happening. So the people fled from the island, but they never found them. So what they think is, and they never found, I hate to say it, mass graves, or they think that they might have actually died at sea, that they could have been incinerated by some of the eruptions, like they got away, but they didn't get far enough, quick enough. So anyway, so this has been a mystery for 100 years. What happened? How did they all survive? How could this be?
A detective story.
So the big announcement that I have is that we found the first victim.
Wow.
We found a tsunami victim from 3,500 years ago.
Wow.
A teenage boy.
Where?
A teenage boy in Turkey. In Turkey, next to the island of Chios.
Yeah.
And he was found inside a tsunami deposit that happened. There were actually at least 4 tsunamis from the eruption. And so there he was. So the more amazing, well, there's many amazing things about it, but one of the other incredible things is that he was found, when they originally found him, they didn't think much of it. They thought he was a murder victim or something, because they didn't realize it was a tsunami deposit. And above him, there's about 3 feet above, you see all these pits in the deposit. Well, and many of those pits are shaped like peanuts or multiple peanuts. So what we think we're seeing is that we actually, not only did we find the first victim, but we are finding where they took people out. So I don't know whether they were living or dead, but we actually see the signs of the rescues or the retrievals. Yeah.
For me, somebody like you who goes a lot into the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I swim, I develop this style of the fan swim. The fan to make sure the air will stay dry.
To keep it above. I
don't want to spoil the fan. So this is how I swim. And then I'm thinking, what if I would go into your profession? I mean,
well, you see the result. You can't take your hair too seriously once you're
unbelievable.
But Beverly, we cannot say it. We cannot show it. What you just said.
Not yet.
No,
but listen, we don't show.
When are you planning to show this?
In few months. We have time.
Okay, just let me know, because
January, February.
I will tell you when it's coming out and the embargo date, and I can also tell you that National Geographic is interested. They might. I'm hoping that they're going to do a whole illustration of the teenager and his dog. There's a dog there too, by the way.
Wow.
There's a dog victim.
Wow.
There's a dog.
Listen, what can I tell you? You deal with tsunami, but I am amazed the way you smile. and your eyes are shining when you talk about fish poop. No, but your whole attitude is so, I mean, I really admire people who get up in the morning and they're still in awe of something.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel so lucky. I feel so
Well,
lucky. I mean, it's, you know, I feel so fortunate because, you know, they say choose a profession that you would do for no pay.
Right, it's right.
You know,
Right.
this is really the key to happiness,
yeah.
and it's true. You know,
I make films for mostly for no pay, but I make my living another way. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
was
you.
great. Was
we'll
great.
talk.
Thank you so much, and everybody.
Stay
See you next
safe
week.
and dry.
Yes, safe and dry. Keep
I
your
will.
keep your
You guys too.
Bye.
Stay healthy.
ביי ביי, stay healthy.
Bye. תודה.
תודה רבה, היה יפה מאוד. Oh,
wait, we need to say goodbye. No, it's stop recording.
Still recording, so we say
We didn't
goodbye
say
to
goodbye.
goodbye.
No.
To
We're gonna say goodbye twice.
It took us a few times.
Signing off.
Now we take time to stop the recording, but still try.
Our log.
Basically in few months.
Right. No, yeah.
Yeah. Bye.
It was great and wonderful, and I'm going to swim.
Yeah.